The silent invasion captain Sarah Chen stood on the observation deck of the Luna station, watching the massive crystalline ships emerge from hyperspace like diamonds catching starlight. After 3 days of radio silence since first contact, the HFY aliens had finally arrived at Earth's doorstep. The ships were beautiful in a way that made her stomach clench with unease. Too perfect, too symmetrical, like geometric poems written in metal and light. "Captain, Admiral Torres wants you in the briefing room immediately," came the voice of Lieutenant Rodriguez through her communicator. Sarah took one last look at the alien fleet before making her way through the station's corridors. The briefing room buzzed with nervous energy. Admiral Torres, a weathered man with silver hair and sharp eyes, stood before a holographic display showing the alien formation. Beside him sat Dr. Marcus Reeves, Earth's foremost xenobiologist and the man who had first decoded the alien's initial transmission. "Captain Chen?" Torres nodded as she entered. "Dr. Reeves has just finished analyzing their latest communication. Marcus, if you would." Dr. Reeves stood, his usually confident demeanor replaced by visible concern. "They call themselves the Ethereals. Their message is diplomatic, but there's something underneath that bothers me." He activated the holographic playback. The image of an alien appeared before them. Tall, slender, with skin that seemed to shift between silver and blue like liquid mercury. Its eyes were large and dark, and when it spoke, its voice carried a musical quality that was almost hypnotic. "Greetings, inhabitants of the third planet. We are the Ethereals of the Cosmic Harmony Collective. We come in peace, seeking mutual understanding and cooperation. We have observed your species' rapid development and believe we can offer guidance to help you join the greater galactic community." The message continued with offers of advanced technology, medical breakthroughs, and solutions to Earth's environmental problems. All they asked for in return were temporary settlement rights on selected continents and the opportunity to establish cultural exchange centers in major cities. "Sounds reasonable," Admiral Torres said, though his tone suggested he thought otherwise. "What's your concern, Doctor?" Dr. Reeves pulled up linguistic analysis charts. "It's not what they're saying, it's how they're saying it. I've spent 40 years studying communication patterns, and this message has all the hallmarks of manipulation. The phrasing, the emphasis, even the visual presentation is designed to bypass critical thinking and appeal directly to our emotional responses." Captain Chen studied the display more closely. "You think they're lying?" "I think they're telling us exactly what they want us to hear," Reeves replied. "But more concerning is what they're not saying. No mention of their true numbers, their technology's limitations, or what happens if we refuse their offer." Before anyone could respond, Lieutenant Rodriguez burst into the room. "Admiral, we're receiving reports from ground stations. The aliens are broadcasting directly to civilian populations worldwide. Every major network, every internet connection, every communication device on the planet is carrying their message." Torres' face darkened. "They bypassed our communication protocols entirely. How is that possible?" "It shouldn't be," Rodriguez answered, "unless they've been studying our systems for much longer than we thought." Over the following days, Earth's response was everything the Ethereals could have hoped for. World leaders stumbled over each other to negotiate favorable deals. The promise of clean energy, advanced medicine, and solutions to climate change proved irresistible to populations already struggling with these challenges. Dr. Reeves found himself increasingly isolated in his concerns. His attempts to raise questions about the aliens' true intentions were dismissed as academic paranoia. When he suggested that humanity should proceed more cautiously, he was reminded that the Ethereals possessed technology centuries ahead of human capabilities. Captain Chen, however, had spent her career in military intelligence, and her instincts were screaming warnings. She began conducting her own investigation, using her security clearance to access classified monitoring data from the alien ships. What she discovered made her blood run cold. The Ethereals' ships weren't just hovering in orbit. They were conducting detailed scans of every major population center, military installation, and industrial complex on Earth. More disturbing still, they had deployed thousands of small, nearly invisible probes that were infiltrating Earth's digital infrastructure. "Marcus, you need to see this," She called Dr. Reeves to her private office 3 weeks after first contact. The scientist arrived looking haggard, his usually neat appearance disheveled from sleepless nights spent analyzing alien communications. "Sarah, please tell me you have something. The first cultural exchange centers are opening tomorrow, and I have this feeling we're walking into a trap." She showed him the scanning data. "They're not here to share technology with us, Marcus. They're cataloging our weaknesses. Look at this." She highlighted specific scan patterns. "These match strategic assessment protocols I learned in military academy. They're preparing for occupation, not cooperation." Dr. Reeves studied the data, his face growing pale. "Dear God, Sarah, do you realize what this means? If they've been planning this from the beginning, then every concession our governments have made, every piece of infrastructure they've been given access to, is a potential control point," Chen finished. "Marcus, we need to warn people." "Who's going to listen? Half the world's leaders are already talking about the new golden age of human-alien cooperation. The other half are too afraid of being left behind to object." That night, Chen couldn't sleep. She walked through Luna Station's corridors, noting how many of her fellow officers seemed more relaxed than they had in weeks. The promise of alien technology solving humanity's problems had created an atmosphere of euphoria that felt dangerous to her trained instincts. She found herself back at the observation deck staring at the alien ships. As she watched, one of the larger vessels began moving toward Earth's surface. According to official reports, it was carrying the first group of ethereal ambassadors to the new cultural centers. Her communicator buzzed. "Captain, priority message. From Dr. Reeves. Put him through." Reeves's voice was tight with urgency. "Sarah, I've been monitoring the alien communications since their ship began descending. They're not speaking the same diplomatic language they use with us. The internal communications are different." "Different how?" "Colder. More clinical. They refer to humans as the subjects and our cities as containment zones. Sarah, I think they see us as specimens to be managed, not equals to be respected." Chen felt her worst fears crystallizing into certainty. "Can you translate more of their internal communications?" "I'm trying, but their encryption is incredibly sophisticated. What I have managed to decode suggests they've done this before, multiple times. They have protocols for civilization integration that sound disturbingly like instruction manuals for peaceful conquest." The next morning, Earth's news networks were full of celebratory coverage as the first ethereal cultural centers opened in New York, London, Tokyo, and Geneva. The aliens emerged from their ships with graceful movements and warm smiles, presenting gifts of technology that seemed like magic to human observers. Captain Chen watched the coverage from her command center, noting details that the excited reporters missed. The ethereal's gifts weren't random acts of generosity. Each piece of technology they shared required connection to what they called the Harmony Network to function properly. Within hours, millions of humans were eager to integrate their devices with this alien system. "It's brilliant," Dr. Reeves said, joining her to watch the feeds. "They're not conquering us with force. They're making us dependent on their technology voluntarily." "How long before they control our critical systems?" Chen asked. "If their integration rate continues at this pace, maybe 6 months before they have access to everything that matters: power grids, communication networks, defense systems, financial, markets, all of it funneling through their Harmony Network." Chen made a decision that would brand her as a traitor in the eyes of many, but might save humanity's freedom. "Marcus, how long would it take you to create a detailed report on what we've discovered?" "A few hours if I focus on the most critical evidence." "Do it. Make copies, lots of them, and prepare for the possibility that we might need to go underground. Soon." "You think they'll move against us?" "I think anyone who threatens to expose their real agenda won't be allowed to remain free much longer." That evening, as Dr. Reeves worked frantically to compile their evidence, reports began filtering in from around the globe. Several scientists and military officials who had expressed reservations about the alien presence had suffered sudden accidents or had simply disappeared. The incidents were isolated and could be explained as coincidences, but the pattern was clear to anyone looking. The ethereals weren't just infiltrating human society. They were quietly eliminating potential sources of resistance. Captain Chen sent coded messages to trusted contacts in various military organizations, warning them to prepare for the worst. She knew that once the aliens discovered her activities, her time would be limited. 2 days later, her fears proved justified. Captain Chen, the voice belonged to Zix-9, the ethereal who had served as their primary diplomatic contact. It spoke with the same musical quality that had initially seemed so beautiful. But now Chen heard the cold calculation underneath. Your presence is requested at the Geneva Cultural Center. There are matters of mutual interest to discuss. Chen knew it wasn't a request. I'll be there within the hour. As she prepared to leave Luna Station, possibly for the last time, she activated a hidden protocol she had prepared. If she didn't return or send a specific coded message within 24 hours, her compiled evidence would be automatically transmitted to resistance cells she hoped still existed. The Geneva Cultural Center had been transformed from a simple conference facility into something that looked more like an alien embassy. Ethereal technology hummed softly throughout the building, and Chen noticed that all the human staff wore devices that connected them to the Harmony network. Zix-9 waited for her in what had once been the main assembly hall. The alien stood before a massive display showing real-time data streams from across Earth. Population movements, communication patterns, resource distributions, military assets, everything that would be needed to manage an occupied world. Captain Chen, Zix-9 spoke without turning around. You have been conducting unauthorized surveillance of our operations. There was no point in denying it. I've been doing my job, which is protecting Earth's security interests. Now the alien turned, its large dark eyes fixing on her with an intensity that made her skin crawl. Your species has such interesting concepts of security. You fear conquest by force, but you willingly accept conquest by convenience. What do you mean? Look around you, Captain. In 3 weeks, your people have integrated more of our technology into their daily lives than most species accept in years. They compete to gain access to our gifts. They celebrate their growing dependence on our systems as progress. Chen felt a chill of understanding. You're not invading us. You're making us invade ourselves. Such a crude way to phrase it, Zix-9 said with what might have been amusement. We prefer to think of it as guided evolution. Your species shows promise, but you lack the wisdom to govern yourselves effectively. We provide that wisdom. By taking away our freedom to choose, by removing the burden of choice from those too primitive to choose wisely. The alien activated another display, showing Captain Chen herself. Every movement she had made, every communication she had sent, every piece of evidence she had gathered, all of it had been monitored and recorded. We knew of your investigation from the beginning, Zix-9 continued. We allowed it to continue because it served our purposes. You have helpfully identified other potential sources of resistance for us. Chen's heart sank as she realized the scope of her failure. Not only had she been unable to warn humanity, but she had inadvertently helped the aliens identify and eliminate other opposition voices. However, the alien continued, your activities have reached the point where they risk causing unnecessary disruption to the integration process. Therefore, you will be given a choice. What kind of choice? Accept integration into our Harmony network and continue serving in your current capacity under our guidance, or refuse and be processed as a destabilizing element. Chen understood that she was looking at the future of human resistance. Accept alien control voluntarily or disappear entirely. But she also realized that the aliens had made a crucial mistake in showing her their true nature. I need time to consider. You have until tomorrow morning. We trust you will make the logical choice. As Chen was escorted back to Luna Station, she activated the emergency transmission protocol. Whatever happened to her, the evidence would reach the right people. The aliens might have won the first round, but they had also revealed that they saw humans as a threat worth monitoring. That meant humans were more dangerous than the ethereals wanted to admit. That night, as Earth's cities glowed with alien technology, and millions of humans celebrated their new partnerships with the ethereals, Captain Sarah Chen made her own choice. She would not submit to the Harmony Network, but neither would she simply disappear. Instead, she would become something the aliens hadn't planned for, the first human resistance fighter in what was about to become a very different kind of war. The peaceful invasion was about to meet humanity's most dangerous trait, the refusal to accept defeat, even when defeat seemed inevitable. Underground resistance. 6 months after the Ethereal's arrival, the world above ground looked like paradise. Cities gleamed with alien technology. Diseases that had plagued humanity for centuries were being cured daily, and energy was abundant and clean. The integration process had exceeded even the most optimistic projections. But beneath the surface, in abandoned subway tunnels, forgotten military bunkers, and natural cave systems, a different story was unfolding. Jake Morrison crouched in the maintenance tunnel beneath what used to be Chicago's financial district, carefully splicing into fiber optic cables that the Ethereals believed were completely under their control. His hands moved with practiced precision, the result of 6 months spent learning to fight a war that officially didn't exist. Ghost 7, this is Shadow Base, came the whispered voice through his earpiece. Are you in position? Affirmative, Shadow Base, beginning data tap in 30 seconds. Jake had been a telecommunications engineer before the integration. He'd watched with growing alarm as human communication networks were gradually replaced with ethereal systems, always presented as upgrades that would make everything faster and more efficient. It wasn't until his own sister disappeared after questioning the changes too loudly that he understood what was really happening. The resistance had found him 3 weeks later, when he was about to do something desperate and probably suicidal, to the local Harmony Network hub. Captain Sarah Chen, who had somehow escaped the Ethereals and become a legend among the scattered human resistance cells, had stopped him. Rage makes you stupid, she had told him, but properly directed rage can make you dangerous. Now Jake was part of something the aliens hadn't anticipated, a coordinated network of humans who had learned to fight back using the very systems the Ethereals thought they controlled. Data tap initiated, he reported softly. I'm seeing massive transfers to orbital processing centers. Whatever they're doing with all this information, it's bigger than we thought. Deep beneath the Rocky Mountains in a natural cave system that had been expanded into a hidden command center, Dr. Elena Vasquez analyzed the data Jake and dozens of other operatives were gathering. Elena had been working on quantum computing systems when the Ethereals arrived. Her initial enthusiasm for their technology had turned to horror when she realized how it was being used. Look at this pattern, she said to General Patricia Knox, the highest-ranking military officer who had managed to avoid integration. Knox had been visiting a deep-sea research station when the Ethereals activated their control protocols, and, by the time she returned to the surface, she was officially listed as missing and presumed dead. Knox studied Elena's analysis with the sharp focus that had made her one of Earth's most respected strategic minds. These data flows aren't just monitoring current human activity. They're running predictive models. Exactly. The Ethereals are using our own behavioral data to predict and prevent resistance activities before they can be organized. But here's the interesting part. Elena highlighted specific data streams. Their models are consistently wrong about one thing. What's that? Human adaptability. They keep expecting us to follow predictable patterns, but humans in desperate situations don't behave according to mathematical models. We innovate, we improvise, we do things that make no logical sense. Knox smiled grimly. And that's exactly what we're going to use against them. The resistance had learned to operate in ways that the ethereal monitoring systems couldn't predict or track. They used analog communication methods, moved through forgotten infrastructure, and most importantly, they had developed what Jake Morrison called ghost protocols. These were techniques for temporarily disrupting alien control systems without triggering their security responses. Instead of trying to destroy the Harmony Network, which would immediately alert the Ethereals, the Resistance had learned to make it hiccup in ways that looked like random technical glitches. Captain Chen coordinated these activities from a mobile command center that moved constantly through the underground networks. She had become something the Ethereal's cultural databases had no reference for, a human who fought not for conquest or resources, but purely to preserve the right to remain free. Status report from all sectors, she called out during one of their daily briefings. Sector 7 reports successful data extraction from the Berlin hub, came one response. We now have detailed schematics of their orbital processing stations. Sector 12 has identified 17 new integration targets in Southeast Asia, came another. All are key infrastructure personnel who still show signs of independent thinking. Sector 4 has successfully extracted 3 scientists from the Moscow Cultural Center, reported a third operative. They're en route to Sanctuary Base 3. Chen felt a moment of satisfaction. The extraction operations were particularly important because they targeted humans who still possessed critical thinking skills, but hadn't yet been fully integrated into the Harmony network. These individuals often provided crucial intelligence about ethereal operations, but she also knew that every success brought them closer to discovery. The aliens were adaptive too, and they were beginning to notice patterns that suggested organized resistance. "Ma'am," came a voice from the communication station. "We're receiving a priority transmission from Dr. Reeves." Marcus Reeves had managed to avoid capture by hiding in plain sight. Officially, he was listed as fully integrated and working as a cultural liaison with the ethereals. In reality, he had learned to fake the behavioral modifications that integration produced, allowing him to gather intelligence from within the alien command structure. "This is Dr. Reeves." His voice came through on the secure channel they had established. "I have critical intelligence. The ethereals are accelerating their timeline." Chen felt her stomach drop. "Explain." "They're concerned about what they call persistent anomalies in human behavior. Our resistance activities are causing them to reconsider their gradual approach. I've learned that they're planning something called the Final Integration Protocol." "What does that involve?" "Mass neural modification of the entire human population. They're planning to eliminate free will entirely, turning humanity into a perfectly compliant workforce. The implications hit everyone in the command center like a physical blow. They had known the situation was serious, but this was worse than their darkest fears." "When?" Knox asked. 6 weeks, maybe less. They're already beginning preliminary preparations." Chen made a decision that would either save humanity or doom the resistance to early discovery. "Marcus, can you get us detailed information about their orbital facilities?" "Possibly, but it would be incredibly dangerous if they discover what I'm really doing. The risk is worth it. We need to know exactly what we're up against." Over the following 2 weeks, the resistance worked frantically to gather intelligence and prepare for what they all knew would be their only chance to strike back. Dr. Vasquez's analysis of ethereal technology had revealed something crucial. Despite their advanced capabilities, the aliens had a critical vulnerability. Their entire control system depended on centralized processing. Every decision, every action, every modification to human behavior was coordinated through massive orbital stations that served as the brains of their operation. "It's actually a brilliant system," Elena explained to the assembled resistance leaders. "Completely efficient, impossible to hack from the outside, and capable of managing billions of individual humans simultaneously." "But," Chen prompted, "but it assumes that the enemy will try to fight them using similar technology. The ethereals can defend against any electronic attack, but they've never encountered opponents who are willing to use crude, primitive methods." Jake Morrison understood immediately. "You're talking about kinetic attacks." "Exactly. Physical destruction of their orbital platforms. It would cripple their entire control network." General Knox studied the tactical projections. "We'd need to get close enough to their orbital facilities to plant charges or use direct attack methods. How do we get past their defenses?" "We don't," Chen said quietly. "We get them to let us in." The plan that emerged was audacious in its simplicity and terrifying in its requirements. The resistance would stage a series of coordinated attacks on surface installations, making themselves visible to ethereal security forces for the first time. The aliens would undoubtedly respond by capturing the attackers and bringing them to orbital processing centers for interrogation and forced integration. But the prisoners wouldn't be normal resistance fighters. They would be volunteers carrying concealed explosive devices designed by Elena's team to disrupt the orbital station's critical systems. It was a suicide mission, and everyone knew it. "I'll lead the primary assault team," Chen announced. "Sarah, no," Knox objected. "We need you to coordinate the overall operation. The volunteers need to see that their leaders are willing to make the same sacrifice they're being asked to make. Besides, I've been fighting these bastards longer than anyone. It's only fitting that I be the one to show them what happens when you try to take away human freedom." The night before the operation, Chen walked through the hidden bases talking with the volunteers who had signed up for what was almost certainly a one-way mission. She found Jake Morrison checking his equipment one final time. "You don't have to do this, Jake," she told him. "You've already done more than anyone could ask." He looked up from the concealed explosive device that Elena's team had disguised as a medical implant. "Captain, 6 months ago, I was just an engineer who wanted to make communication systems work better. Now I'm part of something that might save our entire species. If we don't stop them here, there won't be anything left worth saving." Similar scenes were playing out across all the resistance bases. Ordinary humans who had been forced to become extraordinary by circumstances beyond their control, all united by a single, powerful conviction that freedom was worth any sacrifice. The attacks began at dawn, coordinated across 6 continents. Resistance teams emerged from hiding to strike at Harmony network hubs, cultural centers, and integration facilities. For the first time since the Ethereal's arrival, human opposition became visible and coordinated. The alien response was swift and overwhelming. Ethereal security forces, backed by integrated human collaborators, moved to capture the attackers. Most of the resistance fighters were taken alive, exactly as planned. But the Ethereals made a crucial mistake. They assumed that capturing the resistance leaders would end the human opposition. They brought their most important prisoners to the orbital processing centers for personal interrogation by the alien command structure. Zix-9 himself interviewed Captain Chen in what the aliens believed was a completely secure facility orbiting high above Earth. "Your resistance was admirable but ultimately futile," the alien commander told her. "You have only succeeded in accelerating our timeline. The final integration protocol will now be implemented immediately." Chen smiled, and for the first time, she saw uncertainty in the alien's large dark eyes. "You know what your biggest mistake was?" she asked. "Enlighten me. You assumed that humans would fight you the same way other species have fought you, with technology, with strategy, with the hope of winning through superior tactics. And how else would intelligent beings fight? With pure, stubborn, unreasonable determination to remain free, no matter what the cost." Chen activated the concealed device that Elena's team had implanted in her body. The explosion wasn't large, but it didn't need to be. Elena had designed it to create a cascade failure in the orbital station's quantum processing matrix. Across the Earth's orbital space, similar explosions were occurring as other resistance volunteers carried out their final missions. The carefully coordinated processing network that had allowed the Ethereals to control billions of humans began to fail in ways their systems couldn't compensate for. On the surface, humans who had been under alien control for months suddenly found their minds clearing for the first time since integration. The technological paradise the Ethereals had created began to crumble as its control systems failed. But the Resistance's victory came at a terrible cost. Most of the volunteers, including Captain Sarah Chen, didn't survive their missions. In the deep bunkers beneath the Rocky Mountains, Dr. Elena Vasquez and General Patricia Knox watched the orbital facilities go dark one by one. "It worked," Elena whispered. "The control network is collapsing." Knox nodded grimly. Sarah was right. Sometimes the only way to win is to be willing to pay a price the enemy can't understand. But even as they celebrated their victory, both women knew this was only the beginning. The Ethereals still had their fleet, their advanced technology, and their conviction that humans needed to be controlled for their own good. The real war was just starting. The human counterattack. 3 months after the Resistance destroyed the orbital control network, humanity was in chaos. Without the Ethereal's technological systems, power grids failed, communication networks collapsed, and the medical treatments that had saved millions of lives simply stopped working. But for the first time in almost a year, humans were thinking clearly. Commander Lisa Park stood in what had once been the Geneva Cultural Center, now transformed into humanity's first unified command center since the invasion began. Park had been a test pilot before the Ethereals arrived, one of the few humans who had been in deep space when the integration process began. Now she found herself leading humanity's first attempt to take the fight directly to their alien occupiers. "Status report," she called out to the assembled officers. The command staff was a mixture of former military personnel, resistance fighters, and civilians who had proven themselves during the Underground War. General Knox, now serving as military coordinator, stepped forward. "We've re-established communication with approximately 60% of Earth's population centers. The news isn't good. Without alien technology, we're facing massive infrastructure failures, but morale is surprisingly high." Dr. Elena Vasquez, who had become humanity's leading expert on ethereal technology, added her own assessment. "The good news is that we've managed to reverse engineer several key alien systems. The bad news is that the Ethereals have begun systematic bombardment of major population centers. They're no longer trying to preserve us for integration." Park studied the tactical displays showing ethereal fleet positions. After losing their control network, the aliens had withdrawn to orbital positions and begun what could only be described as a siege of Earth. They weren't trying to land forces or re-establish control. Instead, they were methodically destroying human civilization from space. "What's our current capability for fighting back?" "That's where things get interesting," Dr. Vasquez replied with something that might have been excitement. "We've been analyzing the alien technology we captured during the resistance operations. Their systems are incredibly advanced, but they're also designed around principles that make certain assumptions about how warfare should be conducted." "Explain." Elena activated a holographic display showing the internal structure of an ethereal ship. "They build everything around energy efficiency and computational precision. Their vessels are marvels of engineering, but they're optimized for fighting other species that follow similar technological paradigms." "And humans don't?" "Humans are the only species in their database that has consistently chosen crude but effective solutions over elegant but fragile ones. We're also the only species that has ever successfully resisted their integration protocols." Jake Morrison, who had somehow survived his suicide mission when the orbital station he attacked had partially shielded him from his own explosion, joined the discussion. "I've been working with Elena on something that might give us an edge. The aliens' ships are designed to deflect or absorb energy-based attacks, but they've never encountered kinetic weapons at the scale we can build them." Park felt a familiar excitement building. This was the same feeling she'd had before her most dangerous test flights. The sense that she was about to attempt something that had never been done before. "Show me." What Elena and Jake had developed was audacious in its simplicity. Using salvaged alien technology combined with human engineering principles, they had designed spacecraft that were part human ingenuity and part ethereal advancement. The ships were ugly, asymmetrical, and broke every rule of elegant space vessel design. They were also deadly. "We're calling them Mongrel-class assault ships," Jake explained. "They use ethereal power systems and propulsion, but human weapons and armor. Instead of energy shields, we've installed physical armor plating. Instead of precision energy weapons, we've mounted mass drivers that fire chunks of metal at significant fractions of light speed." "How many can we build?" "With current resources and the number of people who know how to work with alien technology, maybe 200 ships in the next 6 weeks." Park made a decision that would either save humanity or ensure its complete destruction. "Do it. Build as many as you can, as fast as you can." But even as the shipbuilding program began, Park knew that raw numbers wouldn't be enough. The Ethereals still had technological superiority and centuries of experience in space warfare. Humanity needed something more than just ships. They needed a strategy that the aliens couldn't predict or counter. The answer came from an unexpected source. Dr. Marcus Reeves had survived his undercover mission within the ethereal command structure, though the experience had left him changed. He arrived at the Geneva Command Center 3 weeks into the shipbuilding program, carrying intelligence that shifted humanity's entire strategic approach. The Ethereals have sent a distress call to their home territories, he reported to the assembled command staff. They're requesting a full military response to deal with what they're calling the human anomaly. How long before reinforcements arrive? Knox asked. 2 months, maybe less. But that's not the important part. Lisa, the Ethereals aren't the apex predators of the galaxy. They're middle management. Park stared at him. What do you mean? The Cosmic Harmony Collective isn't a single species empire. It's a hierarchy of conquered civilizations, each one managing the species below them. The Ethereals themselves were conquered by something called the Architects nearly 1,000 years ago. Elena leaned forward. Are you saying there are species that have successfully resisted them? I'm saying there are species that are actively fighting them right now. The galaxy isn't the peaceful, ordered place the Ethereals want us to believe. It's a war zone, and humanity just became the newest combatant. This changed everything. Topork had been planning a desperate last stand against overwhelming odds. Now she was looking at the possibility of turning Earth's defense into something much larger. Marcus, can you make contact with these other resistant species? Already have. It turns out that our destruction of the ethereal control network sent ripple effects throughout their entire regional command structure. Several subjugated species saw it as a signal to begin their own uprisings. Over the following weeks, as humanity's mongrel fleet took shape in hidden shipyards across the solar system, Commander Park found herself coordinating not just Earth's defense, but the beginnings of a multi-species rebellion. The first alien allies to make contact were the Keth, a species of silicon-based life forms who had been enslaved by the Ethereals for over 3 centuries. Their ships were as ugly and functional as the human vessels, built for endurance rather than elegance. The Keth have been fighting a guerrilla war in the Outer Rim for decades, Dr. Reeves explained during a briefing. They can't match ethereal technology, but they've learned to use asteroid fields and nebulae as cover for hit-and-run attacks, the AO. Second species to join the alliance were the Zephyrians, descendants of a proud warrior culture that had been reduced to agricultural servitude. Their contribution was tactical knowledge and a burning desire for revenge. But it was the third species that provided the key to everything that followed. The Whisperers were barely physical beings, existing as patterns of organized energy that could interface directly with technological systems. They had been forced to serve as living components in ethereal computer networks, but they retained memories of freedom and the ability to disrupt alien systems from within. Together, we represent something the Ethereals have never faced. Park explained to her expanding fleet of mongrel ships and alien allies, a coordinated resistance using tactics they can't predict, fighting for something they don't understand. The first major battle of what would become known as the Liberation War took place in the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter. The Ethereals had positioned a fleet there to intercept any attempt by human ships to leave the inner solar system. Commander Park led the human fleet from the bridge of the ESS Defiance, the first and largest of the Mongrel-class ships. Around her, the tactical displays showed the approaching ethereal formation, elegant, precise, and arranged according to mathematical principles that had proven successful for 1,000 years. All ships, this is Defiance, she broadcast to the EO, mixed human and alien fleet. Remember, we're not trying to fight them the way they expect. We're going to show them what happens when order meets chaos. The battle began conventionally enough. The Ethereals opened fire with their energy weapons, expecting the human ships to respond with similar technology. Instead, the mongrel fleet scattered in all directions, using unpredictable flight patterns that the alien computers couldn't track. Jake Morrison, now commanding his own ship, the ESS Stubborn, led the first kinetic assault. His mass drivers fired chunks of asteroid material accelerated to tremendous speeds. The ethereal ships, designed to deflect energy attacks, were unprepared for physical projectiles that simply punched through their elegant hulls. But the real surprise came when the Whisperers made their move. Invisible to normal sensors, They infiltrated the ethereal ship's computer systems and began introducing chaos into their carefully coordinated formations. Alien vessels suddenly found their navigation systems giving contradictory orders, their weapons targeting their own allies, their shields dropping at critical moments. "This is impossible," came a transmission from the ethereal commander. "Your technology is primitive. Your tactics are chaotic. How are you achieving these results?" Park's response was broadcast across the entire battlefield. "Because we're not fighting for efficiency or elegance. We're fighting for the right to remain free, and freedom makes us do impossible things." The battle turned into a rout. The ethereal fleet, designed for precision warfare against predictable opponents, couldn't adapt to enemies who seemed to thrive on confusion and improvisation. Within 6 hours, the alien force was either destroyed or in retreat, but Park knew this was just the beginning. Over the following months, the Liberation War spread across multiple star systems. Human ships, now improved with technology captured from each victory, fought alongside alien allies who had their own reasons for hating the ethereal collective. The humans quickly earned a reputation as the most unpredictable and dangerous fighters in the galaxy. They used tactics that violated every principle of civilized warfare: ramming attacks, self-destruct missions, psychological warfare, and weapons that were crude but devastatingly effective. More importantly, they inspired other species to fight in ways they had never considered before. "The humans have taught us something important," Admiral Keth Prime said during a joint strategy session. "We had been trying to fight the ethereals using their own rules. But rules are chains, and chains can be broken." The turning point came when the ethereal reinforcements finally arrived. The architects themselves, the mysterious overlords of the Cosmic Harmony Collective, sent a massive fleet to crush what they saw as a minor rebellion that had gotten out of hand. The final battle took place in orbit around Earth itself, where it had all begun. Commander Park, now leading a fleet of over 1,000 ships from dozens of different species, watched the Architect fleet emerge from hyperspace. The ships were beyond anything humanity had ever imagined, massive, elegant structures that seemed to bend space around them. "All Allied fleets, this is Commander Park," she broadcast to the assembled Liberation forces. "Today we end this war, one way or another. The enemy thinks they understand us because they've conquered everyone else who has ever challenged them, but they've never faced humans before." The battle that followed would be remembered throughout galactic history as the moment when the old order finally broke. The architects brought overwhelming technological superiority, but they faced an enemy that had learned to turn weakness into strength, chaos into strategy, and desperation into determination. The human contribution to the victory wasn't just their mongrel ships or their unpredictable tactics. It was their refusal to accept defeat even when defeat seemed inevitable. When their ships were damaged, they kept fighting. When their weapons were depleted, they improvised new ones. When their tactics failed, they invented completely new approaches, on the spot. Dr. Elena Vasquez, coordinating the technical aspects of the battle from Earth's surface, watched the impossible unfold on her tactical displays. Human ships were somehow winning engagements against vessels that should have been able to destroy them with ease. "How are they doing it?" asked one of her assistants. "They're not following any logical tactical doctrine," Elena replied with something approaching awe. "They're just refusing to lose." The moment that decided the battle came when Jake Morrison, his ship heavily damaged and most of his crew injured, made a decision that epitomized everything the humans had brought to galactic warfare. Instead of retreating when faced with an architect dreadnought that outmassed his vessel by a factor of 50, he accelerated directly toward it. The alien ship's weapons should have vaporized him long before he could get close enough to matter. But the Whisperers had infiltrated the dreadnought's targeting systems, and human fighters were providing covering fire that forced the alien gunners to divide their attention. Jake's ship, the ESS Stubborn, somehow made it through the defensive fire and rammed directly into the dreadnought's command section. The explosion that followed took out both ships, but it also sent a message that echoed across the entire battlefield. Humans would rather die fighting than live in chains. The psychological impact on the Architect fleet was devastating. These beings had conquered species for millennia by demonstrating the futility of resistance. But humanity had just demonstrated that some things were more important than survival. Within hours, the remaining architect forces were withdrawing to hyperspace. The Cosmic Harmony Collective's stranglehold on the galaxy was broken. In the aftermath of victory, Commander Park found herself facing a challenge she had never expected. What to do with freedom once you've won it? The liberated species were looking to humanity for leadership, seeing them as the ones who had sparked the rebellion that freed the galaxy. But humans had never sought to rule others. They had only wanted the right to rule themselves. "We're not going to become the new ethereals," Park announced to the Galactic Liberation Council during their first meeting. Humanity fought for the right to be free, not for the right to control others. Dr. Reeves, now serving as Earth's ambassador to the new galactic community, added his own perspective. "The galaxy has spent too long under the rule of those who believe they know what's best for everyone else. Maybe it's time to try something different." What emerged was unprecedented in galactic history, a truly voluntary alliance of free species, each governing themselves according to their own values, but united in their determination to prevent any future attempts at galactic domination. The humans took on a unique role in this new order. They became the guarantors of freedom, the species that other worlds could call upon when faced with threats they couldn't handle alone. Not as rulers or overlords, but as allies who understood that freedom was worth any sacrifice. Years later, when historians tried to analyze how a single species had managed to overthrow a galactic empire that had dominated space for millennia, they would focus on humanity's advanced technology, their unpredictable tactics, or their powerful allies. But the real answer was simpler and more profound. Humans had won because they were the only species that valued freedom more than survival, and that made them the most dangerous force the galaxy had ever seen. On Earth, now a beacon of hope for oppressed species throughout the galaxy, a memorial was erected to Captain Sarah Chen and all the others who had given their lives for freedom. The inscription was simple but powerful. They chose to fight because some things are worth dying for, and freedom is the most precious of them all. Humanity had come to the stars as explorers. They had become warriors out of necessity. But in the end, they had achieved something greater than conquest. They had given the galaxy back its freedom, and that, more than any technology or weapon, was humanity's true gift to the universe.